Hello, my technicians. This is Daniel with the DNA Pest Control Podcast. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend and everyone's doing great in these crazy times. Today is going to be another episode of the mini series, okay? I was so excited to do bed bugs today, but I changed it because it's rat season. And so we're going to talk about rodents. I'm not going to get into rodents meaning skunks, raccoons, squirrels, anything like that. I'm going to get into the basic. Okay, we're talking rats, mice. The main thing that everyone in this world deals with on a daily basis. Somewhere, someone's dealing with this on a daily basis. And even sometimes us as professionals, we deal with this on a daily basis, especially right now. Sacramento, it's cold, it's rainy. Rats and mice are trying to get into the home, into restaurants, everywhere. So, rats. I am now convinced from my hours and hours of research and classes I've taken over the years, even preparing for this podcast, this episode, I am now 100% convinced that rats and mice are the only pest across the board in the pest control industry that I can now say we take care of. We have to take care of them in the same way. There may be little tweaks and methods, but it's all done the same way. Not like bed bugs, not like cockroaches, not like other insects, ants even. There's so many different products, so many different methods, so many different areas you can treat and spray and dust and everything. Rodents are the only one that we can take care of them one way. Well, a couple ways, but it's all the same. There's really nothing that any other country has that we don't have, any other state has that we don't have. You got, other states are going to have better baits, but we still have baits. So really there's nothing that we can say. So rats, I will say, are the only ones that we can that we all take care of it the same way, and we have to take care of it the same way. And I'm going to get into that. So first, rats, or ratus is their technical name, are pretty crazy, okay? I hope these facts and kind of going over a few of these little things with you will help you in taking care of rodents, taking care of mice and rats in your situations in restaurants, in houses, in apartment complexes, hotels, businesses, wherever. I really do hope this helps. So listen in. I am going to go over some crazy facts and a few techniques and things at the end on how to take care of them 100%. So first of all, I found a few cool little facts. So there's actually more than 60 species of rodents, rats, which are all sorts of sizes, all sizes. And when they say rats, that actually is mice as well. So they vary in size from 5 to 7 inches to, it's saying up here, let me see, where is it? Rats are not categorized with mice, but I will be talking about both. So there's 60 species of rats. Let me hurry and pull up how many mice there are. Because they do not categorize them as the same, but we will be talking about them anyway. Let's see here. Okay, so I am not seeing anything. Oh, 38 species. So they're only getting 38. Interesting. Okay, well, so combined there's about 100 plus species. So something really cool is just in 2009, so not too long ago, they found the largest species of rats, which is a Bosavi woolly rat in Papua New Guinea. And it does not actually have a scientific name yet, but it is about the size of a cat. It's crazy. So 32.2 inches from nose to tail and weighs around 3.3 pounds, okay? In the wild, most rats, they're saying that in the research I've done, max weigh about a pound. So this is 3 times that. That's got to be a scary rat to deal with. Could you imagine? You'd have to get those like massive traps, or even sticky traps. They have, they're called elephant traps. They're massive. They're huge. It's got to be, those things are nuts. But anyway, so I'm gonna focus on 3 types of rodents that we deal with most. First one's going to be roof rats. Roof rats here are super dominant, a big problem. That's typically what we deal with as a company in California, in the Sacramento area, and the greater Sacramento area. Another one that we deal with, but we don't deal with too often, and I actually found out some reasons why we don't deal with them, but is the Norway rat. Okay, a lot of people are going to know this as the brown rat, the sewer rat. There's a ton of names for it. Anyway, the Norway rat is actually found on every single continent except for Antarctica. Yet. They haven't found it yet. I'm sure it's going to get there someday. But that's crazy. So we all deal worldwide with Norway rats. It's just crazy to think about. But statewide, throughout the U.S., we all deal with Norway rats. Now, everyone may deal with field mice here and there. You may get a house, mouse every once in a while and deal with those types of situations. But roof rats, Norway rats, and mice are going to be a massive one here in California. So they will eat pretty much anything. In my experience here, what they grow up on is typically what they go and focus on. So if they grow up, eating fruits, typically you're going to find that pack eating the same type of food. Some rodents do need a high fat content, so they'll go after a lot of nuts. And so you'll kind of have to see what their diet is in certain situations. All the facts kind of it's really broad on all the information that they say about rodents. There's not a specific diet. It says they really like meat. But in my experience, I've kind of had I've seen it a lot different. So, but rats, really, you got to kind of, in each situation, it's always a little bit different. But whatever they're eating, that's typically what you want to put it on, or, put on that trap or anything like that. I've been in situations where I'm dealing with mice inside of a house, and I have put peanut butter, I have done everything I can think of, almost everything I could think of, and nothing. And then finally, we found where they were getting into, which was popcorn. Popcorn on trap, boom, caught them all, done. So you really have to find out what their diet is. So diet, when it comes to rats and mice, it varies so highly. There is one species, which is not in the U.S., that are vegetarian, but that doesn't apply to us, so I'm not even going to talk about them. So rodents are social creatures, okay? So rodents do follow in a pack. If you see one, there is most likely more around, okay? It is very, very rare that they are by themselves, unless you just killed one. You killed the male or the female. But they're not going to be by themselves. If there's one, there's got to be more. And it says, so rats are usually in packs. Packs have their leaders. They have the biggest male or the female. So whatever the biggest rat is, essentially, is the dominant one in the pack. New packs can be formed when a male and a female break off and they go to a completely new area. Okay, so they can break off. They can create new areas, which I explained to customers. And I already knew this, but I explained it as essentially the population gets too large. They have to start breaking off and branching off, which in some cases, like roof rats, Norway rats, they'll actually only travel so far to eat, which actually is a big distance. So all my research says about 100 yards, which I doubt they even have to travel that far ever because their diet is so large. Because even when they get super desperate for food, they will eat insects. So they say water creatures, to be specific in some things like snails, fish, mussels. They will attack and eat small birds, mammals, and reptiles. So I think it's all based off of, the scarcity of food. Here we have so many trees. There's nuts, there's fruit. Right now, all the citrus fruit is going crazy. We have so many people with dogs and pets and chickens and ducks. I just was at a house with Rodents, and he has ducks and he has chickens in the back, and he's wondering why he has a problem. Well, chickens, rats, it's really not a good mixture. You're really just bringing them all over, and you leave the food out all night, and you leave your side garage door open. Of course you're going to have rats, right? So other animals, bird feed, they will go for that. So there's so much food here that they can eat. We have, massive rivers running right in the middle of the city. They got plenty of fish. They got plenty of food. They got water. They have everything. So this area is really not, it's so high, and the population of rodents is so high, and it's only going to get worse because if you haven't listened, go back and listen to AB 1788. That's the new law they passed here. They took away essentially all the good bait. So now we get to mess with this old bait. But so their diet really just varies over everything. But remember, you got to kind of see what they're eating and when they're desperate. Also, in one class that I took, they did mention that they did a little experiment with different types of bread. One bread was a higher quality, better ingredients, and then it slowly degraded to a crappy piece of bread. And what they found is rodents can actually distinguish higher quality food. And so they were actually going for the higher quality bread and not the lower quality bread. So they would go for the best food first, and then they would eat everything else. So really interesting if you are putting, or depending on the bait, if you're just buying, bait that some company makes and they're like, this is super bait. Rodents actually might not go for it. You may have to actually go grab something from the store that's actually made for us, and they'll probably be more inclined to go for that instead of, some bait, some company designed to, attract them or whatever. So another thing that is really interesting is, and this is all generalized. So general, rats, well, we know, just like bunnies, they're baby making machines, right? So female rats can mate around 500 times in a 6-hour period. That is just, I don't even know why I found that fact, to be completely honest. But if anyone asks, you can say they can mate up to 500 times. So that's screeching you're hearing up in your wall or attic or anything like that. It's not rats fighting, okay? It's probably something else, So, but so the Norway rat can actually produce up to 2,000 offspring in a year, okay? Norway rats, brown rats, sewer rats, can have up to 22 young at once. Okay, 22 young at once. Just like all pests, there's so many determining factors into that, okay? So we're talking about a healthy, super healthy, fed well Norway rat, probably in a facility somewhere being tested on, can have up to 22 young at once, okay? The average is actually 8 or 9. So if you haven't seen the video, go and watch. There's this, I'm actually going to try to pull this up. So there's this video, it's crazy. There's a video in Australia about these rats or mice. Let me see. I'm going to try to pull this up real quick. Australian, I think, rat infestation, rat plague, maybe. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Let me see if I can get this going. It's crazy.
Mice outbreaks happen on average once every 10 years.
Okay, so if you just go in and you type in Australian rat plague, okay, so he just said in the beginning that this happens once every 10 years. Okay, so what happens is essentially, so this is where you get your, up to, they go from 8, 9 up to 22 young. So in Australia, if you go through the video, it's really intense. So there's a massive rainstorm, monsoons come through, which then just explode the food source, okay, for them, right? Water equals life. Insects, everything. When there's more rain, you typically have that increase in everything. So there's an increase in food, which then creates healthier females. Healthier females equals more babies. More babies equal more males and females, which can have more babies. So if one rat can produce 2,000 offspring and have 22 babies, well, you go 22 times 2,000, you can get massive amount of rodents really, really quick, okay? Now, usually it takes, I think, up to 6, let's see. I think it takes up to 6 weeks before rodents are actually, female rodents can actually start to reproduce. So in Australia, they have this massive explosion of rodents, and I mean just hundreds of, if you watch it, it's crazy. They open up barn doors and they're just pouring out everywhere. They lift up a board that's on the ground and there's just hundreds and hundreds of rodents underneath there, and they just scatter. It's crazy how many there are. But he also says in the video, this only lasts about a month or a month and a half. And then what happens is the food source drops because there's so many rodents, that entire population just crashes. And so then only, a few survive and they're back to normal. But it's crazy to see that, roughly it happens every 10 years. It's just this explosion of rodents. It's crazy. So so it goes through and it says, essentially most rodents can live around 2 years. I think it's less in the wild. You'll have it around 1 year. So 2 to 3 years. And then it's, I think, around 1 year if it's actually out in the wild. So they actually have here. So most house rats, 91 to 97% die within the first year of life. I think that's why they kind of put that out there. But they can live up to 2 to 3 years, depending on how healthy they are. So that's kind of just the general sense of rodents, okay? I will go in a little bit more. So Norway rats, just to get an idea, Norway rats typically stay down low. In the West Coast Rodent Academy, and they actually do an East Coast Rodent Academy, so depending on where you are, sorry if you live right in the middle. I think they don't like you very much, this Rodent Academy place. But on the east and west side, they actually do these classes. And so I actually had the opportunity to go to one here when they were over here, and they did this entire rodent class. They were talking about New York at the time. And we had a few guys from New York there talking about the experiments they did with rodents and Norway rats, sewer rats, brown rats. And there was a massive flooding there. I don't know when they said it was. And so what happens is it forced these Norway rats to essentially climb, because they had to climb and they had to go up high or they would drown and die. And that forced them to learn that ability to climb, like roof rats. They can jump 5 feet. They can scale walls like it's nothing. They have a tail that they'll wrap around things and use to be able to climb. It's crazy to watch these things. But the Norway rat ended up learning how to climb, and then from that, they passed that down onto their offspring. And so Norway rats in New York have learned to climb, which is not normal for Norway rats. Norway rats typically stay down low. They burrow under, hard pieces of cement, the brick, or anything. They don't like to be necessarily inside, like mice do. Mice, they're inside. They're with us. They're living inside that building. They can't really thrive outside. Norway rats can. That's typically where they have. So you won't in here. We won't actually run into a ton of Norway rats inside homes. We'll run into a lot of roof rats inside homes. So interesting kind of fact there. So they'll actually learn and adapt to their environment and what forces them. But here in California, Sacramento, mainly, Norway rats stay down low. They get really big. They're a lot larger than roof rats. I've caught one that was the size of my boot. So probably just the body itself was probably 8 inches, 9 inches, with a tail probably a little bit longer. So it was pretty big. But I only caught one, so I think I caught the alpha on that one. But they had a mess in the backyard. It was terrible. So anyway, so we have Norway rats stay down low. Mice that will get inside the house, they also will climb up on things, but they don't go into the attic. They don't typically go, they'll go into walls and things like that, and they'll hide, but they're going to be typically out onto the counters, the floors, mainly in the kitchen or where there's food. Sometimes they'll go into garages, but they're going to be mainly in the house living with us. The other one is roof rats. Roof rats are real fun right now. We deal with a ton of them. So roof rats, I did have someone tell me it's typically 6 feet and above, but there are exceptions. So roof rats actually do like to burrow and live under hard surfaces, just like Norway rats. And so if you live in a place where there's raised foundations, you're going to get roof rats typically going into those vents and then shooting up the walls, because it's all open space and you have pipes and wiring and everything running up the walls. So they'll usually follow that up into the attic. So they will go down low just to get back up again, knowing that that's the only way. Also in this rodent academy that I went to, they also talked about something new that's not really out there. Not even all the research I was doing online and looking different stuff up, they didn't really talk about it. So I don't know how factual it really is, but they hit it a lot at this rodent academy. And it was that rodents drop pheromones. So I think they have different types of pheromones, but they will essentially let other rodents know, hey, this is home. This is where food is. And so if there's a hole and they have that dark grease, it's called sebum, going into a hole. I know we've all seen it. I mean, it's super dark lines and everything. So, but that's essentially their pheromones, because they urinate and defecate a lot, right? So wherever you see droppings, there's a ton of droppings. Usually up in the attic is typically the worst with it when it comes to roof rats. Mice, it's just everywhere. I just went to this lady's house. Sorry to break off of this, but we're talking about rodent poop. I just went to this lady's house at an Airbnb. She rents it, and they found a mouse. Well, I walk in with a new guy, and this mouse freaking nosedives off of the kitchen counter, and just slams the floor, runs underneath the dishwasher. And we were kind of looking over everything and just walking through, and there's it was mice droppings everywhere on the kitchen counter, on the bed. I don't even know how she's renting this place out to anybody. We even walked around the outside of the house. Boom, a fat Norway rat ran right in front of us and jumped over to the neighbor's house. So she was infested. She didn't do anything, so I don't know what she's going to do, but she's got a massive problem, ton of issues there. But mice will have anywhere from 100 to 150 droppings a day. So if you walk into a house and you see a ton of droppings, that could just be one. Typically not, because they're social creatures, but it's not, when people see a handful of droppings, they're like, oh no, there's like 100. No, it's not like us. We don't just like go once a day, that they are doing this 100, 150 times depending on their diet. And roof rats are the same. It's like 75, and Norway rats, brown rats, I think it's like 75 to 100 or 125 a day. So it's like, even if you see a lot, it's really not that much compared to what they're doing on a daily basis. So anyway, getting back to it. So Norway rats stay down low. Mice are typically inside a home. Roof rats are going to be up high. Okay, so they're going to be getting into eave pockets. So when you're doing your inspection and it's coming down into, I'll just explain. So mice, we'll just start there because I just did a handful of these. So in my inspection, when I'm looking at mice, I want to see first, and even with rats, outside. I always inspect the outside of the property, okay? I know their habitat. I know what they're going for. I know where they live. I know how far they'll travel. I get it. So now I'm looking, okay? Now you guys know. You know where to look. You know how they live. You know what they're doing. You know how far they'll travel for food. Use that to your advantage. So now when you're walking around a home, a lot of people, and I think it kind of turns some people off, but they'll always ask me, do you need to go inside? Do you need to look up in the attic? Do you need this and that? And I'm like, no, I don't have to. I poke my head up in the attic, and what do I tell you? There's a ton of insulation up there. I'm not going to be able to see any holes unless there's a hole like right in the middle of your roof and there's light coming through. I can't tell you. I see some droppings. Yeah, it's rodents. Okay, now what? I don't know. I don't need to get up in the attic. I don't need to get in the crawl space. I don't need any of that because every hole I can typically see from the outside. Okay, so as you're walking around the outside of the home, that's where I start. Is I'm looking up and down. I'm looking for everything depending on what they are. If it's mice, I'm typically looking down low. Are there gaps in doors? Are there gaps around a garage? Are there vents? Are there any pipes around the AC units? That's a huge one that so many people miss. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many companies I've gone behind and guys won't actually get down on their hands and knees and look through the wiring from the AC going right into the house. And all they do when they're construction workers, all they do is put a little tape around it, which rodents can just chew through. The sun damages it, and eventually it just falls apart. So always look at that. And some, actually it's funny, some have this metal casing around it, which shoots straight up to the attic. And it's open at the bottom. They just have the wires going through to protect the wires. so it's like they just open, they just crawl right up, and they're into the attic. Super easy. So you're walking around the house, you're looking up and down, checking everything. If I'm dealing with noises up in the attic at night, roof rats, dead giveaway, I'm looking at eave pockets. Two roofs meet, one overlaps the other right in that pocket. Happy for all the roofers out there. You guys do a great job from keeping rain out. But there's always gaps there. There's always holes there. You have to get up on a ladder and check. You got to do your due diligence to make sure that those areas are sealed. And this is one of the reasons why I said in the beginning that I'm convinced rodents are all, how we take care of them are pretty much the same worldwide, because once we seal up all the holes, all you do is have to trap, and you've just eliminated an entire population on that property. And unless they make another hole or leave a garage open or a door open or a window open or anything open, you've pretty much just solved their problem forever, depending on the material you use and how you do it. So besides that, that's why I think they are pretty much across the board. Doesn't matter where you are. This is how you take care of them. So roof rats, I'm always looking up. I'm typically looking up. I am looking down because if it's a raised foundation, you have air vents, okay? So it can breathe the foundation of the home, because if you have all those closed, a lot of condensation will build up and you'll get mold and dry rot and different things. But they have vents all the way around the property. Majority of these older homes, all the new homes actually don't have raised foundations. They do have vents in the garage to prevent people from killing themselves, but and sometimes those will be kicked in, and that's where you'll have to fix. But all the vents around the base of the home, I check. All the vents that are up in the eaves, I check. Are there any eave pockets? I check. Another big one, trees. Okay, you got to think of a house like a castle. Okay, and a moats around it, right? That water prevents anything from getting into the castle or up to the castle, okay? If you put a tree with a branch hanging right over the roof, you have just created an access point for anyone to get to the castle. You have to cut off those roadways, those stairs, whatever it is. You have to cut all those off from these rodents. Or, I mean, we're talking about rodents. Their job, day in and day out, is I need to live. Where do I live? Where do I eat? Where do I drink? If you don't cut off that living situation, where can they live, and push them to other properties, they're going to live there. So I'm looking for trees now at this point. Okay, I found all the holes around the base of the house, around the eaves, eave pockets, doors, garage door, any wiring, anything. Are there trees? There are trees, great. They need to get them cut back. Okay. One big thing that we do is we will not trap unless we seal the holes. It is a rule here. None of my techs do it. If I find out, I am furious. They cannot set up traps without sealing around the home. If they don't seal up the outside, they don't get everything cut back, they don't do their part, we don't do our part, we don't get everything sealed, we do not start trapping. They have to live with the rodents until we can get that done. Once we get that done, we're good. We're good. We will start the trapping process because, like I said, in cockroaches, and now I get to finally use it here with rodents. Rodents have a triangle, okay? The triangle is food, water, shelter. You take one of those away, you crash everything. You take away their food, so you seal some in. You just took away their water as well. Now, whatever traps you place up in the attic, and not bait stations, okay? This is one of the things that I get so frustrated about, even with some of my techs, some of the older techs that do this. Do not put bait stations up in attics. Do not put bait stations inside of homes, okay? Well, actually, now it doesn't really matter because the bait takes 3 days, 4 days to even kill a rat. But if you do that and the rats die inside the house, now what? And if there was a massive infestation, you just killed a ton of rats, and it's going to stink so bad inside that house. What, like, you're not going to start poking holes in walls. Maybe you are. Maybe that's how you make money. I don't know. But I don't do that. I'm against that 100%. Never understood that. So we do trapping. We actually set out traps, snap traps, glue boards inside the home. Bait stations outside the home. Never go inside. Never go inside. Very rare cases will they go inside. And the only reason why I'd put a bait station inside is a restaurant or a business that is attached to multiple businesses, like a strip mall. Then I would stick a bait station up in the attic or inside to help control. Because if they don't have sealed walls and you're not actually sealed off from your neighbor, it's a free-for-all. You'll never get rid of the population, and so you got to just do what you can do to help control it, but there's no guarantee even with that. But once you seal everything, traps go up inside. You start the trapping process. That's to get rid of everything that's inside, because now you just force them to the actual snap traps. Now they have to go to that food. They don't have any other option unless they want to start eating each other, which is pretty crazy. I've actually had snap traps go off, and I've gone up there and I've just picked out a head on the trap. It's been cleaned, eaten, just devoured. So rodents will eat each other. They will eat meat. So don't, like I was telling you that, the research I've done, they do eat meat. Will eat each other in those extreme cases. But then you just have to reset traps, put everything out, help prevent that from happening, keep catching them. So from there, that is where we start that process. So sealing everything around the house, finding all those holes, trapping on the inside, and then this is where we use the very last one, is bait stations on the outside to control the population around the property. That is really, in a nutshell, the only way you're going to gain 100% control inside of a property is you got to seal it up. And if anyone disagrees, I have so many examples. I have so many times I've gone to places. We just took over a handful of restaurants from another company, a bigger company, that was only putting out bait stations. They actually wouldn't do any of the work. They wouldn't put on door sweeps. They weren't checking for holes. They weren't setting out traps. They weren't doing anything. They just had bait stations. We came in, we charged them for the work. We did the exclusion work. We set up traps, and now they're under control. And it's done. Now we have customers for life. We just took care of their problem. But you can't be afraid to lose a customer because you're going to tell them the right thing, and you have to do the right thing. So when it comes to rodents, and rodents are always so tricky in some situations, if you have like Spanish tile roof and that roof looks like it's like curved, sometimes it'll just be tile. So it's literally like a tile roof or like a cement roof almost. But out here they call it Spanish style, and it's rounded, it's curved. So it's a half circle, and it's a ton of these like half circle tiles that are on the roof. The only problem is there's so many access points when you do a roof like that, that it's the only thing you can do is prevent them from getting up on the roof. Because to actually seal everything, I mean, you'd almost have to have a roofer come out and do it, because we wouldn't be able to. You would literally be spending, they'd be spending thousands and thousands of dollars to seal some of these roofs. So in some cases, you have to do what you can to make sure that there's no access to the roof. In a strip mall, you have to just do your best in what you can, what you can try to do, and then educate your customer. There is a way to do this, but you're going to have someone come in and build walls and seal things off. There's always a way. Sometimes we can't do it, but we have to accept that it can be done if they're willing to spend the money. Most of the time they're not, but if you educate them and they understand that, and you're doing everything you can, you'll at least gain enough control to where they won't see anything. And that's the main thing in some situations. That's the main thing, and that's really the best thing you can do. But when it comes to homes and residential properties, when it comes to rodents aren't that sneaky. They actually like to make themselves known, obviously with their 100 droppings a day, right? They're letting everybody know I'm here. They make a ton of noise at night. They're not really trying to be hidden away from everything. They are making themselves known. So keep that in mind, but definitely do your due diligence, especially if you're here in California. Bait isn't going to do the job for you anymore. We could get away with putting a ton of bait stations around a property, and the bait was killing them so fast, they couldn't reproduce, they couldn't do anything. And we could collapse an entire population, and actually they wouldn't even be inside anymore. It'd be done just with bait stations on the outside, strategically placed. But now we have to do our part. Now we have to seal up buildings. We have to do that. If you don't know how to do it, learn how to do it, or get someone who knows how to do it to do that for you. Because if you don't, I'll come in and I'll take your customer, because we do that. We'll do that. We'll take care of it. We'll make sure that they're all taken care of. So I know I went a little bit longer than I wanted to on the rodent exclusion and everything, but I hope that helped out. I hope that gave you a general idea. Obviously, make your twists and tweaks and everything that you need to, but I hope that helped out enough to get you an idea of how rodents act, react. Also, I almost forgot something very, very important. Also, in this class, just so you know, if your bait stations aren't getting hit or your snap traps aren't going off, but you know there's rodents there, I just want to let you know, be patient. Roof rats, okay? Roof rats. I'm not talking about normal rats. I'm not talking about mice. Roof rats, one, they go and nibble on multiple different food sources. They don't sit and stay and eat one food source until it's gone, okay? They're not like a dog and a cat, okay? That's one thing. The second thing is they're very, very skeptical, okay? Roof rats are very skeptical. So if you throw a snap trap up in the attic, they may not go for it. That's why you have to seal everything, because now you force them even faster to go for it, because you're making their whole entire environment uncomfortable. You put them in freak out mode, right? They can't get out. They can't get in. What's going on? I got to go. And then they get nervous, and then there's no food. There's no water. Yep, here's a trap. They're going to go for it really quick. If you don't do that, they're going to be very, very skeptical. They're not going to go for the trap. It may take up to a month. So they say it could take up to a month for roof rats to even go into bait stations and even around traps, because they are super, super skeptical. Mice, on the other hand, are very curious. Okay, they explore. They want to know what's going on. They see a trap. Cool, let's go touch it. Let's see what happens. You know, there's bait. Awesome, there's more food. It's new food. Cool, let's try it out. Roof rats don't do that. Okay, so you have to know your species that you're dealing with, and that is going to help you out a ton. So I hope this helped you out. I hope you guys learned a ton from this, and I hope you can implement it in your company if you own one. And if you're not, you're just a technician at a place, I hope you can help educate a manager, an owner, to get you new things or to help you in these things, to be able to take over situations, to eliminate rodents. You can eliminate a rodent. You can make sure that they're 100% exterminated out of a home. You can do that. Rodents are probably the only one that you could do that with. Bugs, I don't think you can do that ever. But rodents, you can. There are bigger possibilities with rodents. We can gain more control. But I hope that helped. Remember, guys, send me a DM on Instagram at DNA Pest Podcast. I do respond. I love your questions. If you guys have any ideas, anything you want to hear about, let me know. The series isn't over yet. We do have a few more I want to talk about, but I hope this one helped you out, especially in this time with a ton of rodents running around, especially in houses. When it's cold, they love getting inside, but I hope this helped. And thanks for listening, and have an awesome day.